Alright, Logic fans, welcome to our second video on section 5.3, 5.3b, and we're going to continue to investigate some examples of a relation tableau. We haven't looked at any cases yet that involve relation along with a quantifier. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the first one together. So for each of these, you're supposed to provide a relation tableau which makes it true and a relation tableau that makes it false. We'll start with this one. Now, since we've got the quantifier involved, we have to think about our domain, okay? So for the sake of these examples, we're going to assume that there's a three-object domain, okay? So typically it's going to be A, B, and C. In the case of this one, you're definitely going to have the A in there, but if it were like this, you would definitely have to have the D as one of the three, okay? But so we're going to have three things, A, B, and C, okay? And this A is right here. Now, if we're going to provide a relation tableau that makes it true, we got to think about what this sentence means, okay? This says everything in the domain is such that A bears R to it, right? Everything in the domain is born R by A, okay? So everything in the domain is such that A loves it. So you pick something out of there, it's guaranteed that A loves it. You pick something out of there, it's guaranteed that A loves it. You pick the next thing out of there, it's guaranteed that pick anything you want out of the domain. Okay, reach into Santa's bag, pull something out. Whatever you picked out, it's guaranteed that very thing to satisfy the following description. A loves it. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we might do this, all right? Well, what we're going to do is, since we're operating with a three-object domain, okay, is all we're going to do is basically use the three relations out of the 9 possible ones, right? 3 squared is 9, so there would be 9 possible sentences. This sentence only requires us to think about these three, right? Right? It only requires us to think about the case where, A is loving A, the case where A is loving B, and the case where A is loving C, and whether that's true or false in each case. And since the statement is that everything is such that A loves it, right? And we're trying to make that statement true, we have to have a plus in all three of these. And so this is a relation tableau in 3 objects, okay, that makes this sentence true. Now, if you only had a 2-object domain, right, you could just get rid of this one. So, it would look like this, and you would have A loves A and A loves B, and that would make it true that everything in our 2-object domain is loved by A. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if you can't figure out, based on this then, how to provide a Tableau interpretation which makes this same sentence 1 here false. Pause now. Okay, hopefully you've had a second to pause it and think about it, but in order to make it false that everything is such that it's loved by A, we need to have at least one thing in our 3-object domain, either A itself or B or C, that is not loved by A. Let's pick that one, for example. And then, you could have minuses. As long as you have at least one minus in one of these, you can do it, but we'll leave the others blank. Fill those in however you want. This will be an interpretation that makes this sentence false, right? Okay, and hopefully you can see that, right? This is saying it's not the case that A loves C. Well, if that's true, then the sentence everything is, A loves everything. Everything is loved by A, right? That sentence is going to be false, right? Okay, so now that you've seen that, let's go ahead and think about this case where, in 2 here, the point is that unlike in 1 where you had the constant in this in this position, the first relata, the leftmost relata, now you've got the constant in the rightmost relata and how that changes things. So pause now, see if you can provide an interpretation of this sentence which makes it true and an interpretation of this sentence which makes it false. Pause now. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to do this, but I'm going to do my true one in green here and my false interpretation in red here. Now we've got 3 objects. One of them is going to be B, okay? But unlike the last case, we've kind of got to switch something around because now it's the B that's in this place. So this is saying everything loves B. So what we need here is something like this. Okay, we're going to have B's here, and then this is going to be A loves B, this is going to be B loves B, and this is going to be C loves B, and then of course that's going to be the same here. So this is going to be AB, this is going to be BB, and this is going to be CB. Okay, so that's because, again, the B is in this position, so that position is fixed by B in all of these constructions. Okay, so we're investigating the statement, everything, pick anything you like out of the domain. It satisfies the following description. It loves B. Everything loves B. Everything in there, everything in Santa's bag loves B. Okay? So if that's going to be true, we need A loving B, we need B loving itself, and we need C loving B. Notice that the itself case, okay? This can be a little bit of a hiccup for some students, but if it's true that everything loves B, that's got to include B loving B. Right? If B didn't love itself, it wouldn't be true that everything loves B. So we do interpret this in that strict way, okay? So in order to make that sentence true, we're going to have pluses across the board here. And then, of course, if we want to make it false that everything loves B, right, we need at least one of these to be false. Let's choose that B doesn't love itself. So that would be an interpretation in 3 objects that makes this sentence false, okay? Now, I made a little bit of a slight error here, so let's do 3 and 4, but what I wanted you to get some facility with and looking at was the case of the existential quantifier. So let's go ahead and try 3 and 4 now, and let's see how you do with it, okay? Pause now. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to pause and think in this, but if we're looking at 3, we've got C loving everything. So we're going to have C fixed in this position just as it's fixed right here, okay? And that's going to be the case for both the true and the false interpretations, okay? And then we've got to think about at least one thing, so either A or B or C itself, okay? So this is going to be A, B, and then C. Okay, so if it's indeed the case that at least one thing is such that C loves it, at least one thing is loved by C, we just have to have at least one of these things being true. So let's pick, I don't know, A is being loved by C. Then it's true that at least one thing, namely A, is loved by C, right? Okay, so this would suffice to make it true. As long as you have a plus in at least one of these, you would make sentence 3 true. Okay, but if we wanted to make sentence 3 false, it can't be the case that there's anything that C loves. Right? Nothing is loved by C. So provided nothing is loved by C, then and only then will it be false that at least one thing is loved by C. So we're going to make all of these false, right? And really take the time to think through that, okay? You really got to think it through. So one more time, this Y occurs in this position. It's the thing that's receiving the relation from the thing in the first position. So this is asserting that at least one thing is loved by C. All right, and so as long as nothing is loved by C, that will be false. All right. Okay, let's move on and let's try sentence 4 again, where I switch the position. Right, so now I've got at least one thing loves C. So here this was at least one thing is loved by C, right? C loves at least one thing. This is saying at least one thing loves C, okay? So go ahead and try that one with the true and the false interpretation. Pause now. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is we've got to fix our C in this position, right? C is actually going to be here for all of these, for these, and for these. And it's at least one thing in our 3 object domain. So you're going to have A, B, and C. You're going to have A, B, and C. Okay, so in order to make it true that at least one thing loves C, we need either A loving C, B loving C, or C loving itself, C loving C, right? And so, I don't know, if we have that would suffice to make it true that at least one thing loves C, right? But suppose we wanted to make it false that at least one thing loves C. Well, then A can't love C, B can't love C, and C can't love C. So if it's false that at least one thing loves C, then nothing loves C, right? And so this would be the only possible solution in 3 objects for making sentence 4 false. Okay, so hopefully this is making some sense for how we present a relation tableau in the context of sentences that involve existential or universal quantifiers. Let's keep looking at some examples, and we're just sort of looking at simpler examples and building up in complexity, okay? Okay, so we're going to continue ramping up in complexity a little bit. Now, I want to switch away from a 3-object domain to a 2-object domain. So for these exercises, we're just going to be looking at 2 objects, and I'm doing that for a reason, because some of these start getting a little bit sophisticated, but once you see the 2 case, you can sort of extrapolate pretty quickly the 3 case. And remember, there's tons of exercises in the text for you to do, and they're presented there also in a very sort of structured way that will allow you to extrapolate patterns very quickly, okay? But let's move to 2 objects. Can you provide me with a Tableau interpretation that makes this sentence true and a Tableau interpretation that makes this sentence false, again, in 2 objects, A and B? Pause now. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to think on this, right? But the basic idea is that, this sentence says everything loves itself. For any X, you pick out a Santa's bag, it will satisfy the following description, guaranteed. It bears R to itself. Okay, so whatever R is, the loving relation, if you have a 2-object domain, then the only 2 cases you have to worry about are RAA and RAB. RAA and RBB, right? Because if you got 2 objects, this is the only way they could bear R to themselves. Similarly for the false interpretation, right? So if it's going to be true that everything loves itself, what must I do? Well, I have to have RAA true, and I also have to have RBB true, right? And if I want to make it false that everything loves itself, I just need at least one of these to be false. Let's say B doesn't love itself, and so this would be an interpretation that makes that false in 2 objects, right? Now, obviously, if you had a 3rd object, you would have RCC, and you would have to have the plus, and then you could have a minus there. You need at least 1 minus to make it false, okay? All right, let's keep rolling along. Let's try the same kind of sentence, but this time with the existential quantifier, okay? At least one thing loves itself. A true interpretation and a false interpretation in 2 objects. Pause now. Okay, so once again, in this case, the only thing you're going to need is RAA and RBB. So this structure is going to stay the same, but you need at least one thing that loves itself. Well, to make that true, we could have, this situation, we could have them both, or just this one. That will make the sentence true. To make it false that at least one thing loves itself, we need them both not loving themselves. So we would have to do this for the false interpretation of 2. Okay, and because we're running low on time, I'm going to spill these examples into the next video, 5.3c, so we'll see you on that one.